first of all, the field was typical El Salvador type of field. Like, you know,
they do it. They do
CONCACAF.
They CONCACAF the hell out of that field.
Yeah.
Every
And
time,
then the ball on top of it was like a balloon. So the first few minutes, the game was like really hectic and frantic, and they were running all over the place. And for some reason, I like looked at Leo and I just started like laughing, almost like a big smile, like an actual, and he just like laughed back at me, because I felt like we thought the same thing. We were like, this is nuts. Like, what is happening here? This is crazy type smile. Like this is.
It's when you look at your boy and you're like, this is insane. Like, I don't know what's
exactly.
going on.
No, exactly that.
Welcome to the Player Manager Podcast, the new podcast featuring a player who assisted Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez last weekend, and a guy who plays video games for a living, but I do them well. I beat Brazil with the United States in the World Cup. Today, I'll have you know, I'm Zealand Shannon, and my co-host is Julian Gressel of Inter Miami and the United States men's national team. This is episode 2, obviously. If you missed episode 1, it caused a bit of a commotion that you may or may not have heard about, where news came out that Lionel Messi can actually speak English to his teammates. Now, Julian, did you have any idea when we sat here and talked about that in literally the first episode of the podcast that it would be on ESPN 2 days later? Did you know that many people cared?
Well, I guess, you know, we found out the hard way, I guess, right? I didn't know that it was that big of a deal that Leo doesn't speak much English. According to his Super Bowl commercial, there definitely wasn't much English in that. It was just Michelob Ultra, and that's it. But yeah, I guess people care, and people thought that was a nice little piece of nugget. And what a way to start this podcast, huh?
I know. It was very exciting, and that means there's probably a lot more people here now. Were you surprised when Messi spoke English to you for the first time?
Absolutely. That's what, given my response in the last episode, I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand. Sounds good. Yeah, I was definitely surprised. He had never done that before. We had not communicated a lot at that time beforehand. It was more pointing and kind of gestures, I guess. But yeah, now that was kind of like the way for us to kick it off, right? I think that was the second or third game of the preseason, and ever since then it's gotten a lot better. And he's talking a lot more, even in Spanish, to me. And we've I try and teach him certain things in English at times when the time is right. It hasn't gone that well, but I'll keep at it for sure.
Oh, I've got to know, what phrases are you trying to teach Lionel Messi in English?
No, it's just simple, like good morning, how are you? Like little things, where just to like put a little smile on his face. Or obviously the results have gone our way, and last weekend especially was pretty good. So we are certainly at a time where like vibes are good, and you can joke a little bit more, and you can have a little bit more fun, and that I'm trying to take advantage of that. Why wouldn't I? I'm trying to talk to him and see what I get back. If I don't get back anything, great. If there's something back, I have more to talk about here. So,
all right. Well, we'll try and come up with some phrases that you can teach Lionel Messi. But we've got a great show today. We're obviously going to talk about Inter Miami's fantastic weekend. We're going to set the record straight on something very important, something called Zealand and Chill, which has developed recently. I don't know if you've heard of this craze, Julian, that's sweeping the Football Manager universe, but it might be something that can take over your life, and either it adds spice to anyone's life. We'll also revisit Inter Miami's preseason tour. Is that something we really weren't able to touch on last time? But I want to start with this weekend, because mainly my Twitter mentions, now that we're in this together, we're affiliated, my Twitter mentions this weekend were lit up with the fact that me working with Julian Gressel had a really positive impact on the way that he was playing. So what happened?
But the other way too. You beat Brazil with the U.S. men's national team, right?
I did. Yes, I did.
There's both ways. I guess we've positively been impacted by each other, entering each other's lives.
Yes, we're greater than the sum of our parts now, Julian. The Player Manager Podcast, yeah. And Brazil, and on the receiving end of that, from you and Messi, and now me and the U.S. national team. But this weekend, I mean, literally 4 minutes in, you assisted Luis Suarez on his first MLS goal.
Turning the ball over again. Now it's Julian Gressel. Gressel on the ground. Oh, Suarez here! What a finish! First time Luis Suarez gives
me through the play here.
Yeah, I mean, it was first of all really nice to get that kind of connection going and started. But it was a play where like we were in a defensive situation, and I kind of covered Leo's back as we covered last week, where I do so quite often in the game, and that just happened to be in the 4th minute, and we kind of forced a turnover on that side, and Leo gets the ball, and I have some space on the right to run into, and he finds me, with a great pass into the space. And throughout my career, I've had a lot of moments like that where on the right side I have some time to pick up my head and pick out a pass. And I obviously saw Luis kind of charging into the box and figured to just blast it in there, right, trying to get it right on his foot, just the way it happened, and the way he ran onto the ball and kind of had such a quick reaction to that pass to finish it was unbelievable. Obviously, to see kind of that quality from him. And it felt good. It felt like we were on the same page there. I felt like really for the first time, even in training, and that is certainly nice when it happens in a game like that, and especially in the 4th minute in a derby. Those are good moments.
And you mentioned it was a derby. That must have taken the wind out of the sails, because you're playing Orlando City, and I'm sure they're coming in all hot and bothered because this is the El Clasico del Sol, the derby of Florida, right? Orlando City, who's been around the block a little bit, and then Inter Miami, and you guys just popped them right away. Was there any trash talk coming from Orlando City fans before? Did they try and make it particularly derby-esque? I know they were outnumbered. But.
Yeah, no, yes, there was, and Orlando is a team in general that's quite chippy. That's quite like they're always trying to look for that edge, to kind of fight you and to make it a scrappy game and all those types of things. So to have a goal in the 4th minute and to kind of, like you said, take the wind out of the sails a little bit and kind of show them kind of what's up in the beginning is certainly helped, and was a way for us to really get this game off starting really nicely, and take anything away from what type of game they wanted to make it. They almost want to make it a little bit ugly in a sense, not taking away anything from them. They're a good team and they're quality players and stuff, but just from what I've known them from years past is that's how they want to play, and early goals help. And that helped for sure. And then obviously the second one came pretty quickly after that too, which, is then even more of a killer when you're down or you're up 2-0 after 11 minutes. That's certainly something.
Well, come on, that second goal wasn't just nothing. That was you again, Julian. Julian playing coy. That was your assist again to Luis Suarez again.
Now Suarez gets away from Cartagena, gets it back. Suarez for 2!
Just how good is Luis Suarez? I know everybody keeps insisting that the guy can't move and that he's finished or whatever, but he scores 2 goals in 11 minutes. And man, the finishes are just so sharp. Like you can almost feel the difference of having somebody of his quality. Like to the untrained eye, to my eye, you can feel how razor sharp he is in front of goal.
Yeah, I think that's what he's done all his career, right? And that certainly showed in that 6-minute span there, where 2 chances, 2 goals, and that speaks to him, speaks to his quality. That speaks to him not being done. That speaks to his knee still working. But
those much talked about knees that everybody focuses on.
I know they're much talked about. He certainly takes care of them. Don't get me wrong. He does a lot of work, and I obviously get the behind the scenes look at kind of what he does in order to be ready to play. So, he takes care of himself, and he's ready to go whenever the time comes, and that showed. And it's certainly nice to, kind of shut up some people a little bit about what had been reported in the past, and even for myself to kind of start a little bit slower in the season now to kind of get going. And that second goal, I think, is exactly of kind of who Luis Suarez is, right? Like he drops down into midfield. He has a little bit of, a toss up between the defender and comes out with the ball and just kind of sees me and kind of plays the pass to me. And I just kind of see him continuing his run, which he has done so many times throughout his career and so many times even with us training and stuff. So then I just find the ball again, into space for him. I just try and lay that out for him because I know he's running onto it, and he takes a great touch and then a great finish, obviously, with his left foot. And so he's still Luis Suarez at the end of the day. So the quality is certainly there.
And then he seemed to spend this is my professional observation. All right. I got a text from my mom, by the way. You'll probably enjoy this. She listened to the first episode. And she went, "You're being way too hard on yourself. You have to try and talk yourself up more." And I'm like, okay. So now, in my very professional opinion, Mom, the game got really chaotic at that point because you're already up 2-0. And then Luis Suarez seemed to be determined to not score. Like, he started dishing out these beautiful, he was on a hat trick for most of the game. And he starts dealing, he sets up Robert Taylor. Then he sets up Messi, who scores arguably the weirdest goal of all time. And at that point, do you just feel like you're living in like a simulation or something?
Did he score that with his chest?
Yeah. And you see him, because on the benefit of replay, you've got the goalkeeper and the defender are going one way, and the ball's coming, down to him off the post or wherever it hit. And then he's like facing towards the direction that the defender and the goalkeeper are going. And then he turns his chest and steers the ball into the other part of the goal. It is somehow in classic Messi fashion.
Yeah.
It's a complete disaster of a goal executed so beautifully.
That for me is Leo. Everything just seems to be slowing down for him, when for everybody else it's like going at the speed of light. And in those moments, he's just so composed. Like, when I rewatch that goal, for me, it's like he chests the ball, but then to like not touch it again, because first of all, I would have probably headed it immediately and not even chested down 2 yards out from goal. And then he kind of, just leaves it and just lets it go in. And it's kind of like, hey, I'm better than you guys, and this is how I scored now.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the other, there's some dude behind him that's like pulling his arm, like trying to pull him back from the ball. And he's like, I don't care, it's going in anyways. And you just see him like wheel away and celebrating again. And you guys ended up winning just 5-0, which it was a party from start to finish for, the Inter Miami fans, for the Messi fans, for the Suarez fans, for everybody. And
Gressel fans.
The Gressel fans. I'm in that category, actually. I hate to break this to you, the one behind the Julian Gressel fan account on Instagram now. Nice. We've got a calendar coming out next week if you want to check that out. But all the fans of all of the players. I mean, shoot, you had 2 assists, and according to Taylor Twellman, you should have had 3. I don't know if you knew he said that.
I mean, there's going to be a good argument. Julian Gressel deserves his 3rd assist on that 3rd goal.
Taylor Twellman insisted that you're past the first assist from Suarez, or I guess maybe he didn't get a second assist because of the whole post and everything, but the first assist to Suarez, where he passed it off again to Robert Taylor. Taylor Twellman said that should have been your 3rd assist. So you should have had a hat trick of assists.
I want to say that I think I'll get it. It's like MLS has these secondary assists, right? So these, they're like, if you play a ball through just like that, basically you play a ball through, and then at one times it either sideways or backwards, that's when you get a secondary assist. And I want to say that I'll get it, but I think the league is having some trouble with some of the stats. Have you noticed that, by the way, on the box scores in MLS?
I haven't, but now I'm going to be on the lookout for it.
Yeah, we'll probably get to this a little bit later, but the snow game, for example.
Oh,
right. RSL versus LAFC. It said it was a goal scored in the 45th plus 49th minute.
Oh, well, I mean, classic.
So there's some issues I think the league is sorting out right now about data and stuff, and that is where hopefully I will get credited with that assist, and I will have had a hat trick, which I've never had in the league, and that would be something pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you ever had an actual hat trick? Just
No, 2 goals. 2 goals, and actually that was last year in Vancouver, and I got subbed out like 2 minutes after that second goal, and I go to the coach. I was like, I will probably never have the opportunity to score a hat trick again, so can you just please like leave me in? It was clear as day to sub me out because we had a game like 3 days later and stuff. It was more funny than anything. He was like, "Yeah, no, you're coming out." I was like, "All right."
I love that you asked. You're like, did you consider pulling a Kepa, or you're just like, you cannot take me off the field. I am staying on. This is my chance.
No, it's okay. But three assists in terms of a hat trick assist, I guess. Assist hat trick. How do you say that?
Yeah, I would say assist hat trick. I mean, that's harder to do than a goals hat trick, in my opinion. It's harder to do.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Huh.
They're both pretty hard, I think.
Yeah, well, but neither one's easy.
But going back to Suarez and for him to dishing out these dimes, that speaks to who he really is, in my opinion. He is on that hat trick, and he is in 1v1 with the goalkeeper, and without a hesitation, he plays the ball across to our teammate who has a tap in. Right? Like, there's not many forwards that I know that I think would do that, and that speaks to his quality, speaks to who he is as a teammate and what he wants for this team, in my opinion. And then that's certainly good and exciting to have on my team.
Well, I think that means you guys, obviously it's very early in the season, but based off that performance and that kind of buy-in from guys like Luis Suarez, you guys should be able to, contend this season. There's no reason you can't, I think.
That's the expectation. That's why we have the guys that we have on the team, and that's what we want to do. And maybe if I stop hitting the crossbar eventually when we actually need it, I can also contribute to scoring some goals. But as long as there's assists and we continue to win, it's obviously a big thing.
Yeah, you're just getting those out of the way. You're getting those out of your system early in the year, and then the ball's going to be in later in the year. That's when you get your hat trick. That's when Messi's high-fiving you for your hat trick in a match. That's right. Yeah. But with all those goals, what are you guys saying in the huddle? Like, the first goal, the second goal, Luis Suarez comes up to you and says, like, "Hey, man, thanks." Like, what do you guys say in that? It's always been so interesting to me, that circle that forms after a goal is scored. You're like all high five and like, yeah,
that's it. That's simple. You're just excited. Yeah. You like, sometimes it's like when somebody scores, like the goal Messi scores, it's like Alba comes over and Suarez is there, and we obviously know they have a good time together. So it's all, the game's put away. You're just smiling. You're just having fun. You're just with the boys. Simple as that, you're kind of just chilling and having a good time
with the boys. Well, unfortunately, there was some bad news in the boys department this week because, well, maybe it's like good news in the long run. You never know how roster composition works, but one of the guys that was a leader on the team, DeAndre Yedlin, was actually traded. So from happiness with the boys to one of the boys leaving. Like, how did you find out about that? And professionally, how do you deal with that? Because obviously he was somebody that was an important part of the team.
Yeah, I mean, so I found out about it the same way probably you did, by Tom Bogert's tweet. Or actually, my brother texted me, "Hey, is Yedlin leaving?" ? I hadn't been on my phone for a couple hours or whatever. We had stuff to do here with the family, and my brother texted me, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he sent me the tweet, and that's how I found out. And then I texted DeAndre. He's like, "Hey, are you leaving?" And he didn't get back to me for a while. So
he's got a lot going on.
My wife texted his wife. And then she confirmed that they're leaving. And I mean, it's DeAndre, I thought, had a great game, for example, on the weekend, and obviously speaking to him a little bit more about the trade. I think he knew that it could potentially happen. He didn't know that it was going to happen at that time, or that it was going to happen for sure, but he knew that it could potentially happen. He knew that Cincinnati was going to be the destination. I don't want to speak for him too much, but it's nice to have that little bit of a indication of, okay, there could be something, we're going potentially to this team. And then you can also maybe give your input a little bit of saying, okay, yes, okay, maybe rather not. Those things don't always happen. And especially throughout my career, there have been times where I was traded from, especially the one from DC to Vancouver, where no notice whatsoever. Like, I was sitting in training gear eating breakfast, and the guy told me, "Hey, can you come and meet the coach and the GM?" And then they told me that I wasn't a player anymore for this team. So, there's certainly different ways teams go about it, and I felt like this was the right way they went about it, and DeAndre seemed to be in good spirits about it. He seemed to be excited and kind of got around the idea. Obviously, we had a good thing going. We were sitting next to each other in the locker room. We knew each other from the national team, and still not easy. I mean, if somebody just told you right away, right, hey, Zealand, you got to move to Chicago, like you got to be there in 2 days.
That's cold,
right?
Yeah,
Now,
I guess that's the same with so your personal experience, like after they come to you in DC, for example, or other times that you've moved in your career, what do you have to do in the next 24, 48 hours? Like to handle, because you have to get there really quickly and you got a family and everything.
Yeah. So the family aspect obviously makes everything more complicated, right? In a sense where when I didn't know about it, thankfully Vancouver at that time was so gracious to basically give me however much time I needed. They were like, hey, take 4, 5, 6 days, whatever you need to kind of sort your life out. And then we obviously want you here as soon as possible. But we also know that like there's bigger things than soccer. So that was nice. Even though they didn't ask me before the trade, obviously, that it had happened, but at least they went about it the right way. But yeah, I got with my wife. Honestly, the first thing we did, we went on a walk and just kind of talked about it. Like, because that's really what it is, right? You got to digest, you got to talk about it, and then you got to come up with a plan of, okay, this is when I go, this is when you come, this is when we all go, this is when we move the house, this is when this happens. Like, it's so many moving pieces in that moment where you're just overwhelmed in the beginning and you got to just sort through all that. And obviously very emotional for us at that time as well, because I was not sure if my wife was going to come right away with my daughter. So I didn't know when I was going to see them again. And I didn't want to go there for like 2 months all by myself, and that was going to be heartbreaking for me. And yeah, so there's a lot of moving pieces, but we're trying to, you just try and make the best out of it. And the clubs that I've gotten traded to have always been really good in terms of helping us and finding, nannies, finding moving companies and all the right people right away to get you situated and yeah, help in the right ways. So it's not easy, but it's part of the business. I've learned that the hard way, and that's just the business. But I'm happy for DeAndre if that's something that he kind of got to wrap his head around a little bit and feel like it's a good thing for him. Then I'm happy, and hopefully, yeah, he has a good year, not too good of a year where he beats us, but
it's true. Same conference and everything.
I know, that's the other thing. It's the same conference, a pretty big, good team. Obviously, last year's Supporter Shield winners. So I certainly would have liked to see him go to a Western Conference team, just but those decisions are not made by me, and that's it's okay.
And now that he's gone, are we going to see the debut of Julian Gressel, right wing back extraordinaire, or has that even been discussed? Obviously, you guys haven't necessarily played a game since then.
Yeah, I've spoken with Tata, and he knows I can play anywhere. We are, I think, certainly a little bit of a roster turnover still a little bit, so they're still trying to figure out some other pieces, and we'll see. I don't think he sees me as a full out and out right back in a 4 in the back, which he's told me in the past. At times, yes, I can play there, but not, play the whole season. So I don't think I'll be playing there a ton, to be honest, maybe. But right now, I don't think that's the plan. But certainly maybe right wing back if we change formations. But, after a game like I had in the past, and just this past weekend, there's not many arguments, I feel like, to take me out of midfield right now and to kind of move what's been working. And so we'll see from game to game. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see what the coach thinks. But I feel like, honestly, I'm talking to you, and you should be answering all these questions for yourself because you're so experienced as a football manager, and you have all these things. Like, would you trade a player? Would you transfer a player to a rival in the same team or in the same league, for example? Right? Like,
well, I think there's one big difference between Football Manager, which I have devoted a large portion of my life to, and real world, is that the money that you're talking about in Football Manager isn't real. Right. Well, so that sounds obvious, but then when you end up with like in the position where you're like, oh, I'm making those decisions and I'm managing this massive club, and yeah, 50 million's fine. Right. But then when you get into real life and you're just like, okay, this is actually somebody's money that's being dealt with. Like, would I have taken that trade? No, I wouldn't have. But I also am not somebody that operates in the real world with real world financial pressures. And I am also not somebody with a doctorate in MLS roster rules, right? I do not have an intimate understanding of how MLS roster rules are constructed. I don't know the different types of targeted allocation money necessarily. I did get to visit the MLS studio in New York, which was very revealing. And there's a guy there named Andrew Wiebe, and he's been working at you probably know him. Yeah, he's been working at MLS forever. I say that it's like 10 years, but he offered to teach me the basics, and he said it would take a couple of weeks, like 10 hours a day, and then he would teach me the basics of MLS rules. And he said if I wanted to be a master in it, it would take me like 8 to 10 years, like kind of a Jedi Padawan situation. So I've yet to reply to that and really take him up on his offer, but it is not easy. So I'll be entirely honest. On Football Manager, I make a habit of avoiding MLS because I'm intimidated by the rules.
There's no chance there's the same salary cap and GAM and TAM and
it's all
in the national slots. Is it the same?
It's all in the game. It's all in the game. And it's very hard to run. And in past years, Football Manager's AI has struggled with it. Like there was actually this.
I was going to say, I feel like you can't create a video game based on all these rules.
No, they have it. It's in the game. And there used to be this glitch in MLS where teams would sign players that they couldn't actually register because of the rules. So every once in a while, like once a year, one team would sign like a pretty good player and then just release them because they couldn't register them. And so I would used to, because I love taking advantage of little things like that, I used to just sit down there and hover up these like 19-year-old Colombian kids that they'd be trying to add to the team that they could not register. But be entirely honest. Do you feel like you understand all of it? Like, could you go toe to toe with Andrew Wiebe about MLS rules at this point? Okay.
No chance. I mean, I don't know if Andrew Wiebe even understands all of it, because if he did, he would be in a front office in some club. I mean, the prime example is that DeAndre Yedlin trade, right? Did you see the amount he went for?
Oh, it was like nothing, but it was
nothing, but it was so specific.
Yeah. Here, let me see if I can pull it up, because but the thing is, it wasn't a lot of money, but the amount of money that it was in an important monetary category. It was 100. I have the exact amount: $172,799 in general allocation money. That's what he was traded for. So for those of us, for those that are listening that are not from the United States, or for those that are listening that are from the United States that still have no idea what the hell is going on, DeAndre Yedlin was not he wasn't traded for another player, right? We have the concept of trades in the United States instead of transfers, and he was traded for a specific amount of money that can be exchanged between teams, that's used, I believe, in general allocation money. It's for paying down something to do with the salary cap. I could be completely wrong on that, but essentially it's a pool of money that can be moved, like each team gets the same amount, but you can trade it between teams, that is used to help satisfy salary cap requirements in some way. So he was traded for $173,000 basically of general allocation money.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be so specific is so strange in my opinion, but that's, I don't know. I guess there was some sort of meaning behind it all, and we will probably never find out why exactly. But.
Now, I did promise the people, the assembled masses on the other end of this podcast, that we would talk about the preseason tour as well, because we're in the nitty gritty of the season has started and we're talking tactics and we're talking results. But the preseason tour was what captured a lot of headlines. I spent a lot of time on my stream talking about it before I had any idea that we would be hanging out. But
what did you say about it?
It was a topic of general interest. First of all, I don't know how you felt about this. I was really annoyed that they kept attempting to try and have one more like Ronaldo versus Messi game. Look, they are two of the best players ever. Like if you're making top 3, top 4, maybe best players of all time, they're there. And they played so many times, so many great, amazing matches, right? In La Liga, and then they'd run into each other in the Champions League, and it was always awesome. And but now I get the feeling that, particularly you've got Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia, you've got Messi coming to the United States. I think both of them, to their credit, have fully embraced that and are really kind of enjoying that step in their career. So what I'm about to say, I don't mean to like detract from that, but I do think that their existence outside of the cathedral of like the Champions League knockout stage for the first time in 2 decades has left people really thirsty for just any and all sightings of them. Because if you have Apple TV, obviously you can watch Messi anytime you want. I don't honestly even know how to watch the Saudi League legally, but the need to have one more game, and then people were building it up. Obviously, it's their job to build it up. Millions of people watched that game or whatever. Even though Ronaldo didn't play, Messi played like 5 minutes, right? It didn't end up being what it was billed, but that was what we talked about the most. I would say is that I was almost annoyed by that because I wish they could play a game where it wasn't like who gets the last laugh. I wish there could be a game where it's like Messi and Ronaldo get to hang out one more time on the field, but it's always billed as like, Ronaldo and Messi, their career record.
Yeah, that's because the fans also make it that way, right? You're either a Ronaldo fan or you're a Messi fan. You can't really, it's crazy to me because you can't really enjoy both. But I think you should enjoy both because, like, come on, who how lucky are we to live in that generation of watching them both go at it and do what they do on the field. So. Yeah, I was excited for the game, not gonna lie. So I wasn't building it up as like, oh man, they're trying to just make this a showcase, which it kind of was built that way. Like, for example, they built a brand new stadium in Saudi Arabia not just for this, but like it felt like just for this, where when we walk into the locker room, it still smelled like paint, for example. They finished our locker room like the night before the game started and things like that. So it certainly was a big deal. Obviously, very unfortunate that Ronaldo didn't play at all, and Messi kind of only played for 5 minutes with a little bit of an injury as well. It didn't happen the way the fans wanted it to, or the organizers wanted it to, I feel like. But the game was certainly not played. Or not going the right way for us, which
what happened in that game? By the way, that was wild. Well, you had Laporte scoring from Qatar in that game. Like what? Yeah. That just looked like the weirdest game ever.
I mean, talk about the game that we just had against Orlando. Similar story, just the other way around, right? Where you just behind the 8 ball on everything. If that's the pass of 50-50, if that's anything, you're just second best. And that was the case in that game. And you have those types of days. That doesn't mean that, they're that much better of a team or that we're that much better than Orlando. On the day we were, yes. But on the day they were, yes. But yeah, that game, it sucked to be on the field. It really just sucks because you just feel hopeless. Like you just feel like, okay, there's nothing I can do. Okay, I can run, I can try, but nothing goes your way. You feel like everything just goes against you. And that was one of those nights. And, it happened and it made us hopefully better. And it made us have performances like we just did against Orlando, where we're on the other end of it.
I imagine that whole time while you were there is probably, you feel like, for lack of a more modern example, you're traveling with the Beatles almost. Like it must have been, because you spent a couple games in Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia was always football mad, but then they, beat Argentina at the World Cup and invested billions in that league. And so they're particularly like frothing at the mouth for world-class like football, world-class soccer to be played there. What's like the craziest fan experience that you had in your couple of matches in Saudi Arabia?
So Saudi itself wasn't actually that bad, or wasn't actually that crazy. Yeah. We had a really nice hotel all to ourselves, which was really nice.
Oh, so they like blocked the whole hotel off.
It wasn't that big of a hotel. So when we obviously had a really big travel party, so it wasn't too much, but it was nice to have the hotel to ourselves and kind of have that privacy. But then obviously traveling to and from the trainings, there was always a little bit of people, but nothing too much. And then the games, the games were the games. It wasn't too crazy, but honestly, the biggest thing probably was in El Salvador, where
Really?
that was the first game that we had, and that was something.
Yeah, well, that would have been your first time playing with Messi too in an actual game. So that was probably there were a lot of things going on multiple levels for you.
Yeah, that was an experience, certainly. It was the first time traveling with the whole team for me, and like strange, like because you prepare for this, right? And everybody tells you that, okay, you're gonna go through the service elevator or the service entrance, and you're not gonna go ever see the lobby really. You're gonna go through from the meal room through the kitchen to the service elevator up to your room's floor. The floor is only for you, with like always security with you in the elevator, all these types of things. And then you actually go through it and you're like, wow, like, oof, this is nuts. Like, I didn't see the entrance of this hotel ever. And you just kind of are always just kind of in protection as well. But yeah, no, it was nuts. There was people, obviously a whole media cast right when we arrived, and I think we arrived at like midnight in El Salvador. There was a ton of people. We had about a half hour, 45-minute drive to the hotel, where there was people driving alongside the bus, honking their horns, like holding out their Messi jerseys. And and then in front of the hotel at like I said, midnight, 1 a.m., there's thousands of people chanting Messi, Messi, Messi. And just like I said, we drive the bus almost under the hotel, and like we go into the side. They don't even get to see him really. But just to see kind of how much he's loved, and how many people are affected by what he's done throughout his career, and even still now is incredible.
How does he react to that? Does he say anything? Does he wave back? Does he just kind of go, "Hey, look at what's going on"?
So it's kind of funny, because remember how I kind of said that I don't want to be like just staring at him all the time. Like, I want to kind of, not be like that. But in that moment, that was like where I was like really curious of kind of how he feels right about this. Like, I mean, I don't know how I would feel, because I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you can know until you have millions of people chanting your name.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a first trip, right? Like where he probably feels that way. It's everywhere he goes, essentially. So, but it was really cool for me to kind of sit on the bus, and I was sitting opposite of him a little bit, and I could kind of see how he reacted to certain moments and stuff. And you could tell how he's grateful. I think that was probably a good way for us to say it, of how he's grateful, but at the same time he almost doesn't want it. I don't want to speak for him, but I think the way, like, he's smiling and he's waving and he's happy and about it, but he's like too shy almost to want it,
Yeah.
So I think he just wants to play soccer, and that's, I think, what he obviously does best. But it was really cool to see, and really exciting to see how he kind of perceives that love and that affection. And then even during the game, like, you can tell he like waves to the fans. Even now still, he waves to the fans, and he tries to put smiles on people's faces, obviously through his play, but also I think he knows obviously what impact he has on people's lives. And it's certainly cool to kind of have a little insight to that, and kind of see how he reacts when nobody else really sees it other than us and other than his teammates.
I do have something on that I want to dig at, but I just had a question first, because does he ever verbally acknowledge it? Like, if you're training in El Salvador, for example, right, where El Salvador is famous, especially in CONCACAF, for being like the rabid fans. Like, is he ever just at training looking around like, wow, this is a little crazy? Do you ever, like, in Spanish, I guess it would have been at the time, or is it more of just a physical kind of, he just smiles and gets on with it?
It's more through facial expressions rather than talking about it. Yeah. But okay. I think even in that game, I remember, I think the first 5-10 minutes, first of all, the field was typical El Salvador type of field, like, you know,
they do it. They do
CONCACAF.
they CONCACAF the hell out of that field every
and
time.
then the ball on top of it was like a balloon, so like a volleyball almost, that just kept flying. So there wasn't really like much soccer really to be played, and like it was tough to kind of find your way to play soccer. So I like the first few minutes, the game was like really hectic and frantic, and they were running all over the place, and I kind of just like, for some reason, I like looked at Leo and I just started like laughing, almost like a big smile, like an actual, and he just like laughed back at me, because I felt like we thought the same thing. We were like, this is nuts, like what is happening here? Like we're just kind of like, I guess let's just make the best of this without really getting injured and just kind of going on with it. But that kind of like a mutual like, this is crazy type smile. Like this is
it's when you look at your boy and you're like, this is insane. Like, I don't know what's going on.
No, exactly that type of smile. And that was kind of a cool moment that, you know, we had as well. So it's those types of moments that he kind of expresses it kind of that way.
No, that makes complete sense. But the thing I wanted to address is, because I have obviously never been on the bus with Leo Messi, but I have been kind of on the other side of the fame spectrum. I've been invited to a Mr. Beast event before. And one thing that was, and he is, for those that don't know, a very popular YouTuber. He's the most subscribed to person on YouTube. And he is, for all intents and purposes, while not Lionel Messi, a very A-list celebrity. And the particular event was, he was opening this restaurant, like Beast Burger, in a mall in New York. And it was the first restaurant he was opening. And he does this thing where he always like gives away money and stuff. And so he invites a bunch of people to come, and 30,000 people show up and get in line to go into this restaurant. They had to cut the line off at 11 a.m. and people didn't finish eating until 1 a.m. Like because the line was all the way through the mall. It's not Mall of America. It's whatever the one is in New Jersey, but it was all the way through it 3 times, like all the way down the mall, all the way back. And so they served more burgers in a day than any other restaurant in human history, which they got a world record for. But what struck me about that was, there is an element that I feel like you really only are forced to think about when you end up on the other side of that kind of obsession and fame. And I was just a much more glancing part of it than you were, because he just kind of invites creators when he lands in an area. I'm good friends with one of his friends. And so that guy, his name's Carl, he just kind of invited me and said, hey, do you want to go to this? And so I'm on the other side of the glass, right? I'm on the creator side. I'm sitting with them, under security protection. Yeah. It's kind of scary how aggressive and just forward people are when they see somebody that's that famous. It is my number one takeaway coming away from that event. We spent all day there, and what they do is like walk up and down the line and take pictures, and they held an event where they gave away money. They had to cancel the event prematurely because there was a crush at the front of the stage, like because people were trying to get to him. And if any of the creators, this was like an order from the top, if any of the creators, which included me, left the secure area, you had to travel with multiple policemen. Now, I didn't need that. I was just subject to the rule, right? Like I didn't need that. But Jimmy, was Mr. Beast's name, was not able to leave a room after a while. And I started to feel bad for him. So I wondered if there were similar types of experiences where it does kind of get scary, or at least a little freaky, like somebody's dangling outside a window, or that you can feel the danger ratchet up, like people trying to reach through the policeman to grab something.
Yeah, there were times. There was a time, like one instance, for example, that I'm not sure if I can really say this stuff, but I guess I just will.
I don't want to get you in trouble, Julian. Obviously, we want to have a long life on this podcast. I'm not trying to do that.
No, but it was actually handled really well, I thought. Where obviously Yasin, right? Our bodyguard that follows Leo everywhere. But this was an instance without Leo actually present. So in El Salvador, and this hasn't really happened in the US. Like I have never really felt like that in the US, but in El Salvador especially, there was an instance where, like I told you, we were in the meal room, and you go kind of through the kitchen to the service elevator and then go up to your floor. And me and like a couple of the teammates, like I said, none of the 4 big guys with us, but we always had a couple security guards just in case. And there was one, sketchy looking guy in the elevator with sunglasses on. He had a Target bag for some reason, and kind of didn't have a floor pressed. So we like got on, and the security guard like already looked at him, and then we hit our floor. And then once the door closes, the security guard asked him, "Hey, can I see your security credentials? Can I get, what are you doing here?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm with the party of the president of El Salvador," because we were supposed to meet the El Salvadorian president a couple hours later. So immediately our security guard pressed a different type of floor and like took him off, and kind of like checked him out a bit more. I feel like obviously I didn't know anything more than that, but he certainly wasn't part of the party wasn't part of the president. And he kind of, and then I guess just disappeared somehow, I'm sure. But thanks to our security team and the kind of, security measures that are in place. So that kind of gave me a glimpse of like, okay, this is this, obviously the first trip, like we talked about, and the first time I really got to experience that, I was like, okay, you kind of in for it here a little bit, and you gotta be, on the lookout a little bit more and kind of make sure that, you're protected at times. But then also I knew that, for example, in LA, when we went to LA and played in LA, I was able to leave the hotel through the lobby, and I just left, and I was able to, go get a coffee myself without, some people asked me for autographs and stuff. And they asked if Leo was coming out, and I was like, I don't think he is. So, but yeah, nothing more than that. But that was a little bit of a scary moment for sure, where after the fact, not in the moment itself, but after the fact, I was like, okay, there's some things that could potentially happen this year that, are a bit out of the ordinary and are something that I've never seen before.
Like new human experiences. You're just sitting in the elevator like, this guy's probably nothing, but I shouldn't have watched all those seasons of Narcos, because now I'm seeing the shadows on the wall,
But you see, Yassine, and you've seen him on social media and his.
Well, I mean,
his
honestly,
body and the way he protects Leo, I think he would protect all of us. So that certainly makes me feel good.
Like he could take on a whole army. But I'm a little disappointed in his abs. If you haven't seen them, you should definitely look up Messi's bodyguard on Instagram. I believe that. Yeah, no, well, because I have better abs, Julian. I don't know if you know this. Yeah, my abs are even better than that. That's what I just want you to picture if you're listening to this podcast, is the 8-pack. But so Yassine has been very interesting to me, because he blew up initially when Messi went to Inter Miami, because he was just intercepting people running on the field. But I was sent a video probably a day or two ago that even during the match, Yassine is just running up and down the sideline, staying near Messi. That apparently if the entire stadium attempts to storm the field, Yassine will just throw him over his shoulder and run through all of them out. Have you had any interactions? Yeah. And you on the other shoulder, that'd be perfect. And if you had any interactions with him, what's it like to have this dude who is essentially Messi's shadow, and also like maybe the toughest dude alive?
I mean, he's a cool guy. He's a chill guy. He's fun. He's obviously around the team a lot, and you can joke with him a little bit, and maybe one day I'll have the courage to kind of tackle him from behind and just see what happens. Just like give him a little scare moment.
Well, that might be the end of your career. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna wait a little bit longer, but no, he's been a good guy, and obviously, like I said, he's there to, his main focus is Leo, but he would do all that stuff for all of us as well, and he has a really good team around him as well. Of security guards and security guys that are not just there just for them, but also there for us to protect us and get us whatever we need. But yeah, I just hope he doesn't ever get in the way of like imagine how funny that would be if he like got in the way of like the linesman or something in a game, or one of the players like trying to take a throw in and he's just like in the way of like something. I don't know.
You think he gets sent off for that? If he just like trips the lineman, all of a sudden Messi's bodyguard gets ejected. Messi's exposed.
Not sure if that's possible.
Oh, I think anybody at the match can get a red card if I remember the rules right, because there is
So I'll ask who the backup security guard is if he gets a red.
Well, you said he has a whole team. So I want to come back to that, but there is a story from minor league baseball in the United States. Just in the on the point of it, everybody can be ejected here. There are ejections in baseball for those that are not familiar with the rules, which I believe might even be the majority of people listening to this. And in baseball, when you have players ejected, they're ejected by the home plate umpire. Now, in minor league baseball, the umpires are in training. They're preparing to get to Major League Baseball. And they made a couple of bad calls in this particular minor league baseball game. And so the audio guy at the stadium plays the song Three Blind Mice. And there's three umpires. And there's this video, and the umpire turns around and looks at the audio guy all the way up in the booth at the top of the stadium, points at the booth, and does the sign to eject him, like essentially giving him a red card, and throws the audio guy out of the game. The security had to go get the audio guy and take him out of the stadium.
That's
just
amazing.
Absolutely world class. I'd love to see more refs do that in real life. And I hope it never happens to Yassin, because he sounds like a great guy, but that's up there. So Yassin's got a whole team. Is that the team when you're talking about, like, yeah, we have a security team in El Salvador or Japan or wherever you happen to be? Is it Yassin? It's basically Yassin and the boys. They're like the Dirty Dozen.
I think we travel with only a few, but then everywhere we go, there's like local police, local security in those cities. So we don't travel with, I don't know, 10, 15 security guys. It's usually two, 3 guys that are always right in and around the team and kind of in the bus and like everywhere. But then everybody else is kind of just wherever we are and wherever we go, they kind of just already are there and stuff to kind of anticipate our arrival and things like that.
Somebody who's very good at logistics is in charge of that and is helping out, which I guess makes sense. And there's one more thing that we mentioned that we wanted to make sure that we got to, or I particularly wanted to make sure that we got to for one reason, which is the snow game. And particularly this entered my world on stream as people, we'll spend the first part of the stream talking about whatever. And the first thing people wanted to talk about was this silly picture of Hugo Lloris, who plays for LA, covered in snow, just trying to play in Salt Lake, absolutely covered in snow. And have you ever played in a game like that? Do you think that game should have been played? Like, from a player perspective, what the hell is going on in Salt Lake in that game?
I mean, first of all, what an opponent to have in LA, right? LAFC, and not even like a Colorado versus Salt Lake. I feel like that would have been better. But no, I've played in snow before in Minnesota, and it's cold. It's not fun. To be fair, that was back in the day with Atlanta, where that was our first franchise win. It was like the second game of the season. And I think we won 5-1 or something. So we had a really good experience that. But still, it's cold. I don't think those games should be played. I mean, that game especially now should, or it looked like it wasn't even possible to really kick the ball and dribble the ball and those types of things. And obviously injury risk is really high. And, no wonder, I think Steve Cherundolo, the coach for LAFC, was kind of complaining a lot about, that game going on as it did. I mean, Salt Lake is probably happy because they won the game and they were able to win and beat a good team with LA and found a way to win and made some snow angels along the way. So certainly good for them. But no, definitely those aren't real soccer games in my opinion. And it's funny because it's only in this league where you can get games like here in Miami where it's 85 and hot and you almost need a water break. And, on the other side, in the Western Conference, you have games where, or even maybe up in Toronto, if you were to play, or Montreal, then you have the potential of getting snow games like that on the same weekend. Like that just shows you what this league is all about and how difficult it is to play in this league and how far it is to travel and how many different climates you have to worry about and all these types of things. So I guess it's what makes this league special. And that's why we love it, don't we?
Yes, that and the Gressel to Messi and Suarez connection is a big part of it. You got a big week coming up, I believe, 2 games. What are you looking for?
Nashville.
Yeah. What are you looking for out of this week?
We're having our first CONCACAF appearance, CONCACAF Champions Cup, obviously in Nashville, first leg. against them. Tough place to go and play, I think, in Nashville. So, in a different competition, so you never know. It's not MLS. Yeah, it's an MLS opponent, but it's 2-leg series, so those are always a little bit tricky. And we want to make a run in the Champions Cup, and those aren't many games you can miss. So we got to be on our stuff and be just as good as we were against Orlando to beat those guys. And then on the weekend, obviously back to MLS, and we want to keep being first. It's kind of nice to continue to keep winning, be undefeated, and we keep going. And hopefully this podcast, like we discussed in the beginning, will continue to help with both of our endeavors. Do you have any big matchups coming up? Or
Oh no, I'm coaching Tottenham right now, so I started save with no coaching badges or playing experience, and we're at Tottenham. And I did deliver. It was after we recorded the podcast. Not only did I'm coaching the U.S. at the World Cup. People were screaming for me to call you up, but you've already retired. It's 2030. I don't know if you want a crystal ball to see the future there, but people were like, "You got to call Julian up." I'm like, "Nah, he's not. He's on the beach somewhere. He's in Cancun, whatever he's doing." We won Tottenham's first trophy in 22 years at that point. So
wow.
We cured the coast. We won the Europa League against Bilbao in the final. But you know who turned me down? Your team, Bayern Munich. You didn't put in a good word for me. Yeah, I got an interview, but they didn't offer me the job. So maybe, I know, it's sad. Did
you actually apply for the actual job too? Because of what's happening there at this moment is not very good. So maybe we can save that for another episode. But
I know they're your team. And look, if duty calls, I'd be happy to try and lead you guys back to glory. I'll get my resume ready. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review. We're also on YouTube. Apparently, I think that might be set up. If it's not, we will be on YouTube soon. You can follow us on TikTok and follow us on Instagram at Player Manager Pod. You can also follow us individually. I'm on every social media as far as I know, although I may have missed one. I'm definitely not on Pinterest, and I'm Zealand most places. And if you follow me on all those socials, then you will learn how to Zealand and chill. That's the nugget you'll be able to find out. It's like Netflix and chill, but better. Somebody used that as a term on Reddit, and I'm embracing it. And Julian, where can people find you?
Instagram, Twitter. I actually created a TikTok just like 2 days ago. So
oh hell yeah,
we'll see how much I post. But just at Julian Gressel.
Can't wait for the Robert Lewandowski dancing TikToks from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna incorporate my daughter. I feel like a little bit more on that one. So we'll see how far we'll take that. But obviously follow me on the field. I think that's probably the best way to follow me, and here on the podcast.
There we go, and we will. All right, I can't wait for those podcasts. If you want cute content, follow Julian's TikTok. See you guys next time.